I support the drawdown. The American presence over the next year will be diminishing, and so will U.S. influence. But that's a fact of life. The U.S. role in Iraq will depend very largely on the U.S. role in the Middle East. If the United States is adroit and determined in moving the peace process forward, the peace process between the Israelis and the Palestinians, it will reduce a very major Arab grievance, even hostility, towards the United States. And that includes Iraq. Similarly, if the United States is engaged in serious negotiations with Iran, which point perhaps to some resolution of the issue, the Shiite elements in Iraq will be somewhat less hostile to the United States, although it is a mistake, I hastily add, to view the Iraqi Shiites as somehow or other allied or agents of Iran. During the Iraqi-Iranian War, most Iraqis, Sunni or Shia, fought well for Iraq. So that shouldn't be overestimated. Nonetheless, if the United States is seen as a constructive force in the region, the problems in Iraq will be more manageable. If it is not, that will of course complicate the problems that in any case will surface. I think that we have to be patient about the negotiations. If we're serious about negotiating, we should not start them by talking about more sanctions, options not being left off the table, which is, of course, an indirect way of threatening the use of force, abusing the Iranian state as a terrorist state, and so forth. Some people, even in the administration, have been doing that. And I think it's a mistake, because it actually plays into the hands of the hardliners. In Iran, it also plays into the hands of the hardliners here and elsewhere who do not wish American-Iranian negotiations to move forward, not to say to be successful. So if we're serious, we have to be patient. And if we're patient, perhaps this issue will be worked out. In any case, the facts of life are that, one, Iran is there to stay. Iran is an important, historically refined, serious country. It has now a kind of fanatical regime, which, as even television pictures from Tehran showed, is not really representative of the new Iran that's emerging. Iran is potentially an ally of the United States, on the principle that the neighbor of my neighbor is my ally. It is potentially the ally of Israel, which it was for years. So satanizing Iran, reducing it to some sort of a devil with whom we have to engage in combat, and who, the moment it gets its first nuclear weapon, will somehow detonate it on Tel Aviv, is an absurdity. We have to have a long view, think of the region as a whole, and ask ourselves, what reduces our presence? What increases the probability of the United States being bogged down for many years to come in a large, seething regional conflict? What is the long-range danger to Israel? And then act intelligently on that basis and not be manipulated into overreactions or moves either calculated to or in any case contributing to the collapse of a serious negotiating effort. Well, first of all, I don't think we can generalize that too much. I mean, obviously situations have to be taken into account, even the specific traditions, patterns of conduct of the different peoples, and so forth. Afghanistan is a country that's notoriously xenophobic and composed of people who know how to fight, who fight with great courage and determination, and who, generally speaking, are not particularly friendly to foreigners with guns in their country. So we have to take that into account. In Somalia, is different. For one thing, I should mention another different geography. The geography in Afghanistan is not very congenial to advanced modern troops. The tools that the United States can deploy are derived from American capabilities, which are technological, modernizing, socially productive, educational, social, health, welfare. These are all tools that we can use very effectively. Sometimes we have to use military means, especially if someone attacks us, and giving hospitality or safe haven to Al-Qaeda in Afghanistan obviously is something we cannot tolerate. But even having said that, I think the intelligent question to ask is the answer to that a full-scale military occupation of the country? Because if that is the case, then all Al-Qaeda needs to do is to hide in 2 or 3 countries successively, will be bogged down in 2 or 3 successively wars, and then they'll go hide in the 4th country. I'm oversimplifying this, but the point I'm making, I think, is clear. Namely, are we going to invade every country in which Al-Qaeda acts? So we have to think intelligently about that, too. And I would say intelligence, find out where they are, but find out where they are. Don't take guesses and then kill a lot of bystanders. And then once you have found out, do what is necessary to terminate their threat. But that doesn't mean that you have to engage in nation building, peace building, modernization, democracy institutionalization, and all sorts of massive, ambitious, long-term goals, which if you're serious about pursuing, you can probably pursue effectively in 1, at most 2 middle-sized countries. But that's not the response to the terrorist threat. One could write volumes on that, but there's a simple formula. Our task has to be to engage Russia in such a fashion that Russia itself sheds its imperial nostalgia. The age of imperialism is over. Russia will not be a success if it deludes itself into thinking that it can reconstruct its former empire. Our task is to deal with them in such a way that we absorb them, while at the same time help them to transform themselves. Now, if you ask me how to do that, then give me several hours and I'll read you a memorandum with options in it, but it will have to be at least 50 pages long. Well, let me reverse the question. Suppose you were Chinese. Do you feel that China should be a partner in securing Latin America? In other words, where are the Chinese? Where are we when you talk about the security of that region over there? Well, again, reverse that. Is the American buildup a threat to China? If you want to be a responsible observer of the world scene, you have to really make an effort to understand the interrelationship between parties and not view the issue only from your own perspective. So yes, American military presence in the Far East is no threat to China. But do the Chinese feel the same way? What about Chinese military presence in the Western Hemisphere? Is it a threat to us? The moment it should appear, I bet you we would say yes. The point is, this is not a world in which we can dictate to everyone. We have to be able to find ways for accommodating also with their interests and with their sense of their own identity and role. And then I think you can start discussing this seriously. One of the main problems that the President of the United States faces in shaping foreign policy is that as a consequence of America being a democracy, he has to be very sensitive to the level of public understanding of world affairs. Because our public, in a way, determines what the president can and cannot do. And our public is just woefully ignorant about world affairs. Woefully. I would say that of the major democracies in the world, where a similar phenomenon of the public being important in the shaping of policy occurs, our public probably is the least informed. Take a couple of examples. Geography. Look at some of the polls that have been taken recently on the level of public knowledge of geography. It is literally abysmal. High percentages of American adults in recent tests couldn't find Iraq on the map. You won't believe this. High percentage couldn't find New York City on the map. High percentage couldn't locate on the map what is a large blue spread, namely the Pacific Ocean. So that's one level of ignorance. How can Americans understand geopolitical problems where they don't know where they're occurring? Another aspect, history. Public opinion tests have shown that many Americans, a large percentage of Americans, couldn't identify two countries that America was fighting against in World War II. There are other examples. I could go on. Our reporting on the world. Most people read local newspapers. They don't report anything about the world. They report if there's any excitement about some murder next door, but otherwise it's about other trivia. Worse, most Americans now look for their news on television. Look what's happened to the major news broadcasts on American major networks. It's a competition in trivia and not news. I'll tell you right now who gives the best news on television for American viewers, but not many Americans view that. BBC, that's probably not such a big surprise. And lately, much to my own surprise, Al Jazeera, which runs every day a very good half-an-hour news program that really gives you news from around the world, and it's not propaganda, it's just news. Americans don't watch that, they're not interested. So we have that problem of public opinion. And last but not least, we have an increasingly divided public opinion in this country, polarized, so that the possibilities for intelligent bipartisanship are being reduced. And in any case, they are being interfered with by foreign-oriented lobbies that make it now a specialty of influencing particular congressmen to pass laws imposing foreign policy decisions on the president or prohibiting him from doing certain things, all of which vastly handicaps the ability of the United States to conduct a steady, intelligent foreign policy. That's a very serious structural problem inherent in what otherwise is a good thing, namely that we're a democracy. But the democracy in which the decision makers, the people, are woefully ignorant is also a very vulnerable democracy.